Hey everyone, welcome back. Ready to dive into something awesome. Today, we're going to get our hands dirty with SQLite and PHP.
Nice.
If you've ever thought about building something cool with a database, but, without the server headaches, this one's for you.
I'm all about it. SQLite's perfect for that.
Yeah.
Lightweight, portable.
Exactly. No server setup required. We're using a +2net tutorial as our guide today, and they've got this super practical example using a student table.
Sounds basic, but trust me, the stuff they cover, it's the foundation for any data project.
Totally. Okay, so the tutorial jumps right into connecting to a SQLite database using PDO. And I gotta say, the PHP code is surprisingly simple.
Right. It's one of the things that makes SQLite so appealing, the connection string. It's literally just pointing to your not SQLite file, the database itself.
No kidding. It's like so straightforward. But then behind the scenes, PDO's doing all the hard work, right? Handling the database communication and everything.
Exactly. Like we've got the backstage pass, but we don't have to deal with the logistics. But here's the thing they stress in the tutorial, and I can't emphasize this enough. Set that error mode. Use PDO.errorMode exception.
Ah, exceptions.
Yeah, think of them like helpful error messages. Without them, you run into these silent errors. Your code seems fine, but then, bam, things crash and burn, and you have no clue why.
Ugh, the worst. I've been there, spent hours trying to debug those silent killers. Speaking of which, any other tips for avoiding SQLite headaches? Beyond those exceptions.
Oh, absolutely. One thing that always gets me is file paths. The tutorial shows different ways to structure your connection string. Keep it simple if you want, but especially for larger projects, use absolute file paths.
I see, so you always know exactly where everything is.
Exactly. No more file not found errors to mess things up. Plus, it just keeps your project organized. And once that connection's all set up, time to build that database table.
This is where things get interesting. Like, we're actually creating something from scratch.
You got it.
The tutorial walks us through building this student table, and they use SQL for that, which, I'll be honest, can be a little intimidating at first.
It's like learning a new language, but once you get the hang of it, it opens up a world of possibilities.
So the tutorial dives right into creating this student table using SQL. It's like we're giving the database a blueprint, right? Telling it how to structure everything.
Yeah, exactly. We're defining the table structure, like what kind of data goes in each column. And the tutorial does a great job breaking down the SQL, making it easy to understand.
Right. It's like saying, hey, database, this column here, that's for student name, so it's got to be text. And this one over here, that's for their grade, so we'll use integers for that.
You got it. And here's the cool part. They use the student table as an example, sure.
Yeah.
But you can use these exact same principles for, well, practically any kind of data you can imagine.
Seriously, like it doesn't matter what you're building. Inventory system for your online store, a way to track your, your collection of rubber duckies.
Hey, I'm not judging.
The point is, the core concepts, they're the same. It all starts with this.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got our connection sorted. We built our table. Time to get some actual data in there, right? Bring it to life.
Right. This is where things get fun. And +2net, they actually give you some sample data for this student table. Some pretty interesting names in there, too. Big Nose and Mary Toey. I'm not making this up.
They're memorable, that's for sure. But there's a method to the madness, I promise. This is actually showing you how you'd handle larger data sets in the real world. We're not talking about adding like 1 or 2 students manually. This is where SQL insert statements come in.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, you can add tons of rows of data at once, potentially thousands, even millions if you needed to.
Wow, okay. So it's like the difference between writing a postcard and sending out a mass mailing,
Exactly. SQL gives you that power and efficiency.
I like it. Okay, so we've got all this data stored in our table now. How do we actually access it?
Well, that is where the magic of SQL select statements comes in. The tutorial shows a simple example. They use PHP to run a select query, and that lets them display some of the data from the student table.
And it's amazing how, a few lines of code can pull back exactly what you need from this whole database.
Oh, yeah. And here's the thing. Select statements. That's just scratching the surface of what SQL can do.
Right. Like, we've opened this treasure chest full of data, but now we need to actually sift through it, find the good stuff, not just grab everything.
Exactly. And SQL lets you do that. You can sort the data, like, say you want to see the students with the highest grades first. Boom, SQL can do that. Or maybe you just want the students in a specific class. Filter it out.
Okay, so it's like a super-powered search bar for your database.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about grabbing data exactly as is either. You can use SQL to like analyze and summarize stuff too. Like, what's the average grade for all students? A couple lines of SQL will tell you that.
Huh. So it's not like whatever we put into the database, that's it. We
No.
can actually do stuff with it, pull out insights and all.
Oh, for sure. The possibilities get really interesting.
It does make you think what you could build with this.
See, that's what's so cool about SQLite. It might seem simple, but it's surprisingly powerful.
And speaking of powerful, the +2net tutorial, they also show you how to use that SQL drop table command.
Ah, yeah.
Which, why would you want to delete your table, your perfect student table?
Well, sometimes you need a clean slate. Maybe you're testing a new table design. Or you finished a project, need to free up some space. It happens.
I guess that makes sense, but that also seems like a command you got to use carefully.
Oh, absolutely. The tutorial stresses that. Be careful with drop table. One wrong move, and poof, your data's gone. It's like that saying, measure twice, cut once. But for databases.
Always double check before hitting enter.
Exactly. It's a good reminder that, like, database management, it's not just about the code, it's about thinking through what you're doing.
So we've, connected to our database, created a table, put some data in it, learned how to find what we need, and even how to dismantle things carefully when we're done.
We really did cover it all. And, it might just be a simple student table example, but it shows how useful SQLite can be for all sorts of projects.
And one of the coolest things, at least to me, is how portable it is.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You could literally just take your entire database, stick it in one file, give it to someone, and they can just run it. No messing around with server setups or anything.
That's wild. Imagine being able to share data that easily.
It's perfect for, like, offline apps or if
Yeah.
you're distributing software that needs some preloaded data.
And hey, even if you end up needing something more heavy duty, you can switch from SQLite to something like MySQL, and you don't even have to rewrite all your code.
Exactly. It's really flexible that way. So anyone listening who's been on the fence about trying databases, go for it. Grab that +2net tutorial, download their sample script.
Experiment. That's the best way to learn.
Absolutely. You'll be amazed what you can build.
And the best part is, these core concepts we talked about, the SQL, the connections, all that, it translates to other database systems too. So even if you end up using something besides SQLite,
You've got a great foundation.
it's like learning to cook. You get those basic skills down, you can tackle any recipe, any cuisine you want.
I like that analogy.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive here, I'll leave you with this. What will you build? What data will you bring to life?
The possibilities are endless.
Until next time, happy coding, everyone.